These are your notes for circumference of a circle. So circumference of a circle, circles have their own special names for everything. So the circumference of a circle is essentially the perimeter of a circle, but because it's a circle, it gets its own special name, and we call it the circumference. Remember, perimeter or circumference is the distance around the outside. So when we're finding the circumference of a circle, we're finding the distance around the outside of the circle. So let's label some parts of a circle because they're super important to know. This point in the middle we call the center. Pretty simple, it's the center of the circle. This arrow is pointing to the outside of the circle, so the circumference, or in math we use a big C, a capital C for circumference, is the distance around the circle. So this is probably important to know. This big C stands for circumference. The diameter, that's D-I-A-M-E-T-E-R, okay, or lowercase d. So the diameter is the distance across the circle through its center. So from one side of the circle to the other is the diameter, all the way across. Probably should have done that in a different color. Let's do circumference. I'm sorry, I'm going back because the distance around. So there's my yellow. I'm going to make my diameter green. My apologies. That's the distance across the circle. And then the next one will be the radius, R-A-D-I-U-S, or this lowercase r right here is just the distance halfway across the circle. So if you stood at any point on the circle and walked to the center, that would be the distance. Doesn't matter where you are. It's going to be the same distance no matter what. So the radius is halfway across. The diameter is all the way across, the distance all the way across. And we use a capital C for circumference, a lowercase d for diameter, and a lowercase r for radius. So the diameter of a circle is twice, which is the same thing as multiplying by 2. So twice the radius. So if you notice, the radius is halfway across, so the distance would be all the way across, or 2 radiuses put together, so 2 times this distance gets me the diameter. The radius is half, or we divide by 2, of the diameter. So when you take half of something, you divide it into 2 parts. So the diameter, here's the diameter. If I took half of that, that would be considered the radius. So over here are some formulas for you. To find the distance, you do 2 times the radius. To find the radius, you take the diameter and divide it by 2. You take half of it. The circumference of a circle is equal to, this little symbol is called pi. I don't know if you can see that. So pi, P-I, not P-I-E, it's not the food, but pi times the diameter gets you the circumference. So pi times d, which you'll see here, C equals pi times d. So we use this, use when the diameter is given, okay? Or we'll do pi times twice the radius, this one right here. Circumference equals 2 times pi times r. We'll use this one when the radius is given. To be honest with you, even if the radius is given, I'll probably revert back to this one and just figure out the diameter because it's a little easier. Okay, so example 1. The radius of a circle is 7 meters. Determine the diameter. Well, remember, to find diameter, it's 2 times the radius. So if the if we're plugging in for what we know, it says replace r with 7. So instead of d equals 2 times r, it's going to be d equals 2 times 7. And we know 2 times 7 is 14. So the diameter of the circle, the distance all the way across, not just halfway, is 14 meters. If they were to give me the diameter as 14 meters and they wanted me to find the radius, I would take half of 14 and I would get 7. All right. Example 2. Determine the circumference of a circle with a radius that is 13 inches. Use 3.14 for pi. Okay, round to the nearest tenth. Guys, we are always going to be using 3.14 for pi. This is super important. Okay, you just remember for pi, use 3.14 because we all know that pi goes on forever and ever and ever and ever and it never stops. So in order to do any mathematical operations with pi, we shorten it to 3.14. Okay? So to find the circumference when the radius is given, okay, we're going to use this formula up here. C equals 2 pi r. So 2 times pi times r. And the way I write pi is I write a squiggle and then 2 lines. It's not a big deal if you did like straight across with 2 lines. We know what that means. Okay? So 2 pi r. So what we're going to do in our next step is to replace r with 13 and pi with 3.14 because they tell us up here that the radius or r is 13. So we're going to do 2, and instead of pi, I'm writing 3.14. Instead of r, I'm writing 13. Okay, so 2 times 3.14 times 13. And then to find the answer, we're just going to multiply it all together. Now, the way I look at this is I'm going to multiply my whole numbers together first. Remember, multiplication really doesn't matter what order you go in. So I'm going to multiply my whole numbers together first because I like doing that. So 13 times 2 is 26. So now I know 2 times 13 is 26, and the only thing I have left to multiply is 3.14. So I'm going to put 3.14 on top because it has more digits. That has 3 digits, that has 2. Please don't get confused that 26 is a bigger number, so it has to go on top. That's not true. Whatever has more digits goes on top. Now I'm going to do my multiplication. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. 6 times 3 is 18. Add a 0. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. And 2 times 3 is 6. Going to add down now. 4 plus 0 is 4, 8 plus 8 is 16, 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 2 is 11, 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 6 is 8. There are 2 numbers behind a decimal in my problem, so I'm going to move it 2 times to the left, and I get 81.64. But they want us to round to the nearest tenth. The 6 is in the tenths place, so I'm going to look at the number behind it. The 4 tells me that the 6 stays the same. So remember, if it's 5 or higher, you round the number up. If it's below 5, you just keep it the same. So this stays the same. So that would be 81.6 inches. Let's do 3 more example problems. So we're going to determine the circumference of each circle. We're going to use 3.14 or 22 over 7 for pi. I'm probably going to stick with 3.14 because I like multiplying with decimals more than fractions, but that's just me. Use 3.14 for pi and then round to the nearest tenth if necessary. So we're rounding just like we did up here. Round to the nearest tenth. So this circle gives me the diameter, the distance across. So if I look back up here, that's C equals pi times the diameter. So I'm going to write it. C equals pi times the diameter. I know that the diameter is 5, so 5 is the diameter. So I'm going to plug in what I know. Circumference equals pi, instead of pi I'm using 3.14, times the diameter, which is 5. So all I'm going to do is multiply those 2 things together to get my answer. So 3.14 times 5. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 1 plus 2 is 7, and 5 times 3 is 15. There's 2 numbers behind a decimal, so I'm going to move it 2 times. I get 15.70. If I want to round to the nearest 10, this is the tens place. I'm going to look at the number behind it. The 0 does not make that 7 go up. It stays the same. So I have 15.7 meters. Guys, you must include your units. 15.7 could represent anything. It could be ties, it could be spiders, it could be cars. I don't know. So you have to tell me that that 15.7 is in meters. 15.7 meters. And don't forget to box your answer or circle it or something like that so we know where to look. All right, number 2. This circle gives me the radius halfway across. So I will be using this formula. C equals 2 pi r. So 8 is r, it's the radius. So I'm going to plug in what I know. C equals 2 times pi, we always use 3.14, times r, and we know r is 8. Just like I did in this one up here, I'm going to multiply my whole numbers together first. 2 times 8 is 16, and now I'm going to do 16 times 3.14. 3.14 goes on the top because it has more digits. 3 digits, 2 digits. This one goes on top. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 1 is 6. Plus 2 is 8. 6 times 3 is 18. Add your 0. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. And 1 times 3 is 3. Add down. 4 plus 0 is 4. 8 plus 4 is 12. 1 plus 8 plus 1 is 10. And 1 plus 1 plus 3 is 5. You have 2 numbers behind a decimal, so move it 2 times to the left. I get 50.24, but I want to round to the nearest 10, so I'm going to look at the number behind it. The 4 does not make the 2 go up, it stays the same, so I have 50.2 inches, IN. Remember, you have to write those units, because that 50.2 could represent anything. It could be stars or curtains, I don't know. So you have to tell me that it is inches, not any of those other random things. Number 3. This circle gives me the diameter, the distance all the way across. So I'm going to use this formula. C equals pi d. 21 is the diameter. I'm going to plug in what I know. For pi, we use 3.14. And for d, we're using 21. So I'm going to be doing 3.14 times 21. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. Add a 0. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. Add down. And then I have 2 numbers behind a decimal. So I have 65.94, but the directions tell me to round to the nearest tenth. That's this place. So I look at the number behind it. The 4 does not make the 9 go up. It stays the same. So I have 65.9 feet. Don't forget those units, like I've been saying. And that is how you find circumference of a circle.